Hey guys, good afternoon. So Jacob and I are here and we're shifting things a little bit for our weekly sermon follow-up, and we're going to do 10 sermon questions in 3 minutes. So we're going to start a timer and we're going to hit this hard and we're going to hit it fast and we're going to answer quick. What do you think of that?
All right, let's try it.
Let's do it. Okay, you push it along.
So here's question 1. Why Vision 2020?
Well, we want to talk about what our church should look like in 2020. And so we're talking through our vision for worship, community, mission, and generosity.
Okay. Why is community important?
Oh, it's super important. First of all, we talked about it on Sunday because community is what Jesus has called us to. And so Jesus invented the church, not us. And church community comes out of what his calling for us is.
Okay. What if I've been hurt by church, Troy?
Man, that is such a good question. And it's real, I think, to everybody. I think in one way or another, people have been hurt. Maybe our feelings have been hurt in one way or another. And so we have to deal with this gently, but realistically. And as much as we may have been hurt by church, potentially in a relationship, God calls us to come back to it. Not because of what someone can or can't do for me, but because of what Jesus has done for me.
Okay. What does Galatians have to teach us about church community?
I love Galatians because Galatians began in a beautiful setting with churches that were doing well. And then in time, we read in the book of Galatians that people begin adding things back into it. And so the imperfections of church begin to root up. And Galatians talks about that theologically. And then we get to chapter 6 and it gives us some practical examples of what we can do as a church.
Cool. What about someone who has been caught in sin?
Yeah, so that's going to happen in the church because we're human. And there's individuals, each of us struggle with sin to one extent or another. So what do we do with that? And the book of Galatians says that we should restore that person. We have to find a way to work through it and restore and to come back together. And that's what the gospel of grace is all about.
Okay. Why is it easier to judge from afar than to restore in love?
It's a lot more work to restore in love. It's much easier to just mark somebody off and say they're no good and to tell everybody why they're no good.
Yeah.
But to dig in and show love and take the time to do it, it's going to mess with our schedule.
Yeah. Why does Paul tell us to boast in ourselves and not in our neighbor?
Okay, so this is coming from a verse in Galatians chapter 6. And I think here's the answer to that question. So there is something that happens when somebody falls into sin and we don't, that we somehow feel a little bit superior to that person. It's a part of our humanity. And so I think what Paul is saying is we need to look into the mirror ourselves and we need to live out Christianity we've been called to and not find our value in saying that we're better than someone else for some other reason.
Why does Paul tell the people who are taught the Word to take care of the teachings of the Word?
Yeah, I think it's actually, this is coming from a pastor, it's an interesting verse 6 of Galatians chapter 6. And I think that the reason why this is here is not so that pastors and teachers are taken care of, God's going to take care of us, but I think it's so that we are investing into it. We are called to give generously, and it's really for our own good, not the good of them. God's going to take care of us.
Sure. Why do people become wary of doing good?
Oh man, for a lot of different reasons. One, our margins can get out of whack and we can become pushing and serving others more than allowing God to take care of us. And so we have to be very careful that we're taken care of, that we are worshiping, that we are learning, and then we pour into those others that have needs and not allow our desire for affirmation to pull us outside of our margins.
Okay. How can I make sure I'm caring for those in the household of faith?
So in Galatians 6:10, he says, take care of everyone, do good to everyone, especially those of the household of faith. Sometimes we can be tempted to get missional beyond and forget about those within. And we're spending all of our efforts outside of the church body. And God tells us, you know what? No, stay strong with the church because the church in and of itself will exalt God and will be a mission, will communicate a mission to those that are around us. So the value of the church says the people outside will see us, and by our love for one another, will be prompted to ask questions and to pursue that relationship in and of themselves.
Cool.
Is that it?
There's all your questions.
All right, I don't know how long it took. Hopefully it's less than 3 minutes.
I think we're close.
Thanks for checking in.